Hello, me up there. You're in scientific statistics. I'm a geographer there, and I lead the transportation team of National Spatial Data Infrastructure. Some credibility stuff. I have a BS in geography, master's in computer science. I'm working on a PhD in public policy. Some of my past work, probably the most important, is yard boy, warehouse front, construction gopher, plumber's assistant. That's a dirty job. Don't recommend that one. Bartender, barback, all that kind of stuff. Some interest there. Also coach some youth sports. That's always fun to do. Chatting today about creating public value with geospatial information. Please, I'd love this to be a conversation. Raise your hand. Let's chat. Make the talk instead of me talking at you. So I'll introduce the geographic information value chain, and then I'll apply that to the OpenStreetMap kind of foundation. Maybe we can think together about how we might increase the value of geospatial information offered by OSN. So the geospatial information value chain, it's a framework that helps us think about how we convert data and information resources into assets that have social and economic value. The way to create information, to create data and information products. So we want to understand, here's the data we have, how do we convert that into products? And then we want to use that, take action to extract the maximum value from that geospatial information, if possible. And then we're transforming data into information, and hopefully that information into knowledge. So these are the actions: cost avoidance, acquisition, harmonization, accessibility, interlinking, exploitation, and curation. I'll go through these one by one. I'll go through them quickly because I want to have a chat at the end. So cost avoidance. Have a plan, okay? I like to use this plan for when I consider what I'm doing with my data. It's a good framework. I know it helps me to find weaknesses, where I can increase value by identifying gaps in what I'm doing. Check for existing data. If you want it, somebody else is most likely somebody always has it or wants it as well. If they don't have it, team up, work together, build a coalition, and focus everybody's efforts towards creating that data, that information that you need and want. And share resources. OSN is really good about crowdsourcing. Know a bit about that. But share your costs, your labor, your technology, and ultimately the glory of all the work that you're doing. All of this is kind of a duh thing. We kind of feel like this is implicit knowledge, but kind of listing all this stuff out helps us convert that implicit knowledge into explicit knowledge. So when you're talking about acquisition, creation is expensive, so avoid that cost if you can by collecting data. And if you must create data, then align that creation with industry best practices. Consider standards. What are other people collecting? What is the content? So think about that. Harmonization. So there are over 108,000 cities in the US, 3,142 counties in 50 states, and they all insist on collecting the data and publishing it in a different format, right? So if you have similar data and you want to have it work together, you have to convert that into format that. So standardization addresses that conversion and formatting process. That standardization I consider that conversion before creation, and it places the burden on the data provider. And then conversion is standardization after creation, and that places the burden on the data user. So it's a lot easier to make that conversion up front and then share the data than for everybody to collect that data and make that conversion. Aggregation creates value by putting it all in one spot. So we have to do that work. That's one of the things that we do at BTS is aggregate data so that you guys don't have to. And then licensing, declaring how your data can be used. And I'll get into licensing later. Unused data has no value, right? If I have a bunch of data on my laptop, it's just sitting there, nobody's using it, no value at all. The more people that use your data, the more valuable it is. So accessibility is about increasing access to the data. You want to publish it. If you do publish it, make sure you can find it, people can use it. And then make sure that you're sharing it. Sharing is easy. We do that by sharing, by local paths to that data. So we provide services, we have downloads, and different platforms as well. Interlinking, finding connections between different data sets and discovering, this helps us discover different uses, discover uses for the data that is different than the intended original intent of the data. Also data integration, and that's how we create value by putting data sets on top of each other and linking them, putting them together, and then those derivative data sets create value as well. That integration enriches the information visually and contextually. What am I doing? Good? Yeah. Running through it too quick, so I slow down. Visualization just eases data interpretation, right? People say if a picture's worth 1,000 words, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a map is worth 1,000,000, right? So put it all together really helps us understand. It's easy manually to look at it and not rely on AI is getting better, but it's really easy for the mind to comprehend stuff once it's visualized. Analysis, inspecting the data to try to make it more useful, data mining, pattern identification, trend analysis, all that kind of stuff. Reasoning, that's we're talking about identifying implicit knowledge and then converting that implicit knowledge into explicit knowledge. That's geography, GIS. That's really great at that kind of stuff. And then interpretation, and understand the information and then transform that information into knowledge. So this informs decision making and reduces uncertainty. Curation. So you want to make sure you're updating your data, make sure that's current, because current data typically has more value than older data. Older data does have some value sometimes based on the use case, but we want to clean and repair the data as often as you can. Nobody likes dirty data. Gross. We want to remove inconsistencies, correct inaccuracies, and formatting errors. Make sure that all the data are in the same format, things like that. I'm a big metadata proponent. It's as important as the data. It fosters discovery and increases user confidence, right? People want to know where that data came from, how it got there, who the contributors are, how it's maintained, when was it last published. And then we want to make sure we're archiving the data. Like talked about, current data is more valuable than older data, but if you don't have the archived data, you can't compare past states to the current state. So finding ways to archive that data so you can get trend analysis. All right. So taking the GIVC and you got 10 minutes there. Okay, great. On time. Perfect. Find the GIVC to the OSM. Okay. And I'm not super familiar with OSM. I'm not the expert like Brian is here, but he's here to correct me if I'm wrong. So OSM is not the world, the labor market for geospatial data. You guys have interest that you want to protect and do that through your license. My issue is that it's a blanket policy and it ignores diverse and unique circumstances. So I would like you guys to consider maybe a tiered licensing agreement. So that the more risky it is, maybe the more restrictive the license is, the less risky it is, the less restrictive the license is. And I know this is wrapped up in, you got OSM US and OSM Europe and that kind of stuff. I'm not familiar with all the politics of all this. So this may be much easier on paper than it is to actually implement, but something to consider. Am I wrong? So you guys offer a base map, but not individual layers as services. Is that correct? Am I lying? Yeah. Okay.
We offer geospatial data. We don't even offer a map.
It does.
There's a map out there, but that's not the focus. The focus is the geospatial.
Just the data mix, right?
And it's up to you as a user to
Okay. I find that hard to do. Like I can't extract, if I want to use a road layer or a bridge layer, I have to go into OSM. I have to extract that data. I have to download it in my GS and then I can use it. So it would be easier for me to access that data and use that data if I could just point to a service, like a map service or feature service. So that just increases access, right? Are we on time? Good. 3 minutes of time. I'll run through these. Discovery. I know you guys have a ton of data, but it's hard to figure out what's in there and how to get it out. So, maybe a catalog. I go to OSM catalog, say, oh, here's the list of all the data. I click a button, it takes me there or extracts a point right away, right? So I'm just making that access easier through a discovery portal or something like that. I know you guys do routing, and people use that routing for, I think here uses it, Google, no? Third-party thing? Okay. Maybe provide services, spatial analysis, proximity stuff, density, provide those tools that allow people to exploit the information that data you have. And then archiving. You guys have a ton of data, people updating all the time. What is the past state of that data? What was it 10 years ago? What was it 5 years ago? How do we capture and compare it to the current state? So just some ideas there to throw out there. Some sources there. Geo Value is a great book. I've read it multiple times. Rely heavily on that for this presentation. The National Resource Council licensing geographic data is old, but it's still pretty relevant in a lot of spaces. It's kind of cool to compare what the geospatial industry was in 2014. So that's kind of where I am. All right, that's my spiel.